Ok, donc je vais commencer avec une excuse. Malheureusement, ma présentation va être en anglais. Ça fait 15 ans que je travaille professionnellement en anglais seulement. Je pense que si je le ferais en français, je perdrais mes mots assez rapidement. Par contre, à la fin, si vous voulez poser des questions en français, il n'y a pas de problème. Si vous voulez m'attraper dans le corridor, il n'y a aucun problème. Deuxièmement, à l'avant, il y a des sucreries polonaises, si vous avez une petite fringale. Merci, merci. Et dernièrement, à la fin... oui? Comme ça. OK, d'accord, mais c'est mieux, oui. Aussi, si vous êtes en arrière de la salle, il y a peut-être quelques slides qui vont être un peu... le fond d'écriture va être un peu petit, donc je m'excuse. Donc, allons-y. All right. Anatomy of a frame in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. So, why I'm making this talk? Well, I did a presentation in 2023 on GDC, which was going through some of the key system of Red Engine 4. And at the end of the presentation, a lot of people were asking, like, well, yeah, okay, but how did you multi-thread this system, or how did you do for this other system? And well, and for that I thought, well, okay, I can do some presentation more broadly going through the job chain and how we made it. Also, we all know that achieving great scalability on CPU is pretty hard, and I think we didn't do too much of a bad job. So a quick recap about how we got to Phantom Liberty. So in February 2021, I laid out the first line of code to get the port for PS5 and Series X, and exactly 1 year later, we were released on PS5 and Series X, Series S. I was pretty happy about the result. It's the first time that really we managed to maximize the use of the CPUs on console. And fun fact, we released Series S at 30 Hz, and a lot of people were complaining about it. Then after a few checks, we figured out, like, well, we're at 50 FPS, so... And a few months later, we patched the 60 Hz version, which, well, let's just say that the 10 FPS we missed took a while, as always with this console. September of the year, we had Edge Runner patch, which is quite a massive patch, but also the first patch that we did that really we saw the community come back to the game and get very excited. Well, also thanks to the anime, which was pretty good on Netflix. 1 year exactly later, 2.0, which is a full revamp of the game. And now I think we had the full vision that we had from the game was finally, well, in your hands, in the hands of the gamers. And I think for the studio, it was quite a relief to get there. And exactly 1 month later, Phantom Liberty was finally released, and very good reviews. I was very glad to see all the Digital Foundry reviews also, and all the technical review, at least for me. Not that I'm not interested about the score or Metacritics, but, you know, different interest. Right, so today I will show you a quick video about what I'm going to profile and explain how we multi-threaded a few systems. Unfortunately, there won't be any sound because we have some technical issue, which is not the fault of the people here, but actually my company, because there's some security rights, and for some reason it doesn't work. So it will be in silence. If someone wants to make some audio noise in the background, feel free. Well, there we go. So yeah, Max Stack is coming, and we are fighting. Okay. Trying to narrate what's going on. So, and we cut. And I did the capture exactly starting from here. So, very colorful. This is our in-game profiler. Here we have about 6 core being used. I will go through a little bit what the color means, because you will see them in quite a few slides so that you're not too lost. So here we have 6 core. Main thread plus 5 job worker. The blue, when you see any blue, it is general engine jobs running. The gray is all the gameplay and AI. The yellow is animation. The red, I guess orange, is rendering. Pink, audio, because pink. And the green, physics. And the light blue, which is a bit hard to see, but at the end of the frame, is the UI, because the UI was also multi-threaded. Unfortunately, the UI is probably the most complex system we had to write to make it multi-thread, so I won't have time to go too deep into this one. But if you're interested, well, let me know, maybe I can do a presentation about it in the future. So how did I make the numbers? Well, all the numbers were taken on not this PC. My actual PC broke a few days ago, just before I came here. So now it's a replacement one, which is probably why I have those technical issues. But yeah, so I had the specification of the PC at least. And pretty much all the capture I did was using only 5 job worker plus main thread. Why? Because it fit nicely on the screen. And also I was able to get pretty close to 16 milliseconds, 60 hertz, with quite good usability of the CPU. All the measurements were made with our own in-game profiler. And finally, when you will see the job chain, which I will go more in detail when we see the first one, I really tried to make it in the profilers, but there was so much chaos that it was impossible to see the dependency. So I decided to go with a more artistic visualization of the job chain, which you will see. Now the agenda. So we'll start with the structure of the frame, then we'll go with the few key systems. World streaming, gameplay, animation, physics, audio, briefly on the graphics, and we'll close with scalability and performance in general, and maybe some takeaways. So let's start with the frame structure. So short story about this. In 2019, in January, I came back from vacation. Quite nice holiday. I was actually from where I'm from in Quebec. Came back in Poland, fresh, happy to go back to work. So installed the build, latest build on PS4, and we were at something like 60 milliseconds. Yes, 60, 15 FPS. And I was like, okay, what the hell is going on? And from there on, this is why now I have my beard is white and I don't have much hair. So basically, what I did to try to figure what was going on, I took a bunch of Post-it because I realized that when I was profiling, no one actually knew what was going on at all in the frame. Like zero, no budgeting, no structure. So took a bunch of Post-it, went into a conference room, and I started to actually visualize what we had currently on PS4. And as you can see, I wrote in big, this is my shitty handwriting, 66 milliseconds. Then I took all the people, all the tech leadership, and we just sit down and we look at it and we're like, well, all right, we need to do something about it. And what did we do? Well, we still use some Post-it. It was before COVID, right? So it was a bit simpler to get everybody in a room. And then we ended up with something like this. So we took a bunch of Post-its and we started to design how the perfect vision that we had for all the system we had working together in a beautiful 30 milliseconds. How we're going to deal about the dependency. So we already started to design the structure. Now you can see a little bit like, again, my bad handwriting, like the first is the frame begin, at the end you have the end frame. And then you can see that it started to be more compact and pretty much not too much holes. There's also only 4 lines. Oh man, it's hard to see on the, sorry about that. There's only 4 lines because we also said that one of the CPU will be more or less 30 milliseconds will be budget for the rendering because at this stage we already had something quite multi-threaded and another 30 milliseconds, like another core, probably for everything else like decompression, deserialization, spawning, all those kind of other stuff that can be happening at any point of the frame with about 30 millisecond budget. So this worked really well. Now, what do we ended up finally in the game? So for some of you that actually watched quite a few presentations, might have seen that in famous Jason Gregory and Uncharted 2 legendary presentation. It's kind of the same, which is we divided the whole frame into what we call update group. So we have classical frame begin, we have entity update state where we basically, this is where we process all the states of the entity when we add, remove, and then a bunch of buckets. We're defining the dependency between entities. So we update all the vehicle first, and then we follow with the characters in the object because usually they're attached. So we process one after the other. So the position cascade. And then camera update, which is quite important, as you probably all know. When we know the camera position, we can do quite a lot. And the end, pre-render update. And in between, we have probably all the update group that were mostly used for the UI, and at the end for simulation and preparing for the next frame. So yes, in the beginning, in the middle, we have the vehicle, character, and object bucket, and those are segmented into more update group. Again, nothing too new if you ever watch Jason Gregory's presentation. So divided the whole entity update into a various group. How does it look like in the profiler? Well, Here I have the major update group with the color to isolate where in the frame it fits. So the first one is, of course, the begin frame, and the last one is the pre-render update. And in the middle, the dark blue, which is almost black for you, the green and the gray is the vehicle character and item bucket. Very quick overview about our job system. If you want to know more, my colleague David Block did a presentation at this year GDC, which goes very in-depth, maybe too much, depends if you really want to go deep, because he went very, very deep. So the main goal was to unshackle the main and the render thread. I really did not want to have a classical single-threaded main and render thread anymore. So that was one of the goals we had with the job system. We wanted everything to be a job, no more custom thread that you need to synchronize and figure out how you're going to manage them not to steal your CPUs. We also wanted to have all the gameplay people to be able to build their own jump chain, because sometimes the gameplay, they're not very used to use those kind of systems. They think in a very different way than me or some of us, maybe engine people. So we wanted them to finally be able to think about how to do their system in a more multi-threaded way. So it needed to be very simple. And in the end, we had something like 2,000 to 5,000 jobs, maybe more depending on the case. So yeah. If I say the word job chain, what I mean is basically a whole chain of job and all the dependency. This is what we mean by that in the presentation. So what kind of thread we ended up in? The main thread, we still had it in the end, but it simply just scheduled the first big job chain, which has all the update group, and then he acts as a regular job worker, stealing some job from the others, and at the end, he just waits for the compilation and kick the next frame. Then we had all the job thread. Most likely, in the most of the case, it was scaling up to 12. After that, we start to lose a bit of performance, but I will address this at the end. We still had async IO thread. Some of the middleware we did not manage to fix to use our job system, and telemetry, we had a custom thread. Other thing we had, when I say the word system, what do we mean? We had two kinds of a system. The first one is the world system, where we're limited to the lifetime of the world, and the game system, where we're the whole life of the whole game. And these were the main method to register to the frame update. Those systems could talk to each other, but you had to be very careful about thread safety. We didn't have any way to, there was no mandatory rules for communication between the system. It was, the developer had to figure out what is the thread safety and what guarantee it gives to the others. Quick code snippet here, which is probably the only one in this presentation. So for some people that like it, I'm sorry. So people that don't like it, good for you. This is how we register to a group. Basically, there was an object called the registrar that we pass to every system when they are created, and you can say, okay, I want to run this lambda in this update group. In here is the pre-bucket. We want to run the update component for the audio, and then in the character bucket during the prephysics update group, we want to run some raycast. Very simple. All right, world streaming. So we had three main systems there. The first one, the world streaming system, well, simple name. This one is responsible to decide what sector needs to be streamed in or out. What is the sector for us? It's basically a cube with have all the payload representing those positions in the world. So a payload could be a mesh. It has a position, it has a resource, it has a distance where we want it to be visible from the player or streamed in. And then we load those big chunks of data, and then from there we can finally decide what we need to stream in the game. Fun fact, at the beginning we had this at the beginning of the frame, but then we realized that the only thing I need is the camera position. Therefore, we put the system at the end of the frame and we loop around, so we can take as much time as we want. We don't need to block the frame to do this process. Second one was the node streaming. This one is the one that takes those nodes or the payload and now decide which one needs to be streamed in, streamed out, and how. It followed directly the world streaming system, so when the job chain of the world streaming finished, this one kicks in. Finally, the entity system, very simple. It handles how to attach entity, how to spawn them. So you handle like how to spawn, let's say, a vending machine in the game, or how to spawn a vehicle. So now on the top, I hope that is visible. This is the update group, right? And from the presentation, I will highlight in yellow where we are so that you guys are not too lost in the frame. So right now, for the well-known streaming, we are in the player aim update group where we kickstart the process. For the visualization of the job chain, when you have one box yellow, it's a single-threaded job. When you have a box which has multiple box overlap, it's a parallel 4. And the gray one, or white for you, maybe, they are like a fire and forget job that can finish whenever they want. So for the system, we start with the sector streaming, where we decide which sector we need to stream in and out. From there, we can fire the fire and forget streaming of those sectors, so we can load or destroy those sectors. From there, we check every single node, and when I say every single node, we do check every single node in parallel, which one needs to be streamed in and which one needs to be streamed out. We generate those bit set, right? And from those masks, we can now figure out which one we need to pass to the next process to stream node. So we go parallel 4, every single one we go, okay, now it's your time to load your mesh, load whatever resource you have. And finally, we accumulate the result about what is finished for the next process, which is attaching. So in the profiler, if I zoom in more closely to the specific process here, this is the streaming where we collect the node. One job was taking about 15 microseconds. This goes really quite wide. In this example, we don't see that as wide because other jobs are running in parallel at the same time. But it was pretty good. From every single job, we were processing something like 10,000 nodes. And as I said, we were doing every single node. So the process was taking about 100 microseconds on old-gen console to do the whole process, which is quite good. Next step, we go back to the beginning of the frame begin, and we do the node management part. First thing we do in parallel, we do all the attach and detach of the node. So when the node is ready to be in the world, we call attach on it. Basically, we'll register for example, render proxy to the renderer, so it can be now rendered, or remove it, and so forth. All of them goes in parallel, nothing in serial. The little detail in the bottom is the non-thread safe nodes. So about 80 to 90% of the nodes were made in parallel, but the last 10% we kind of gave up because it was so much effort to make it in parallel versus just, okay, we have one job that process all those nodes in a single-threaded way. Perfect, we move on, and the rest is parallel. It fits perfectly on the frame. I'm happy. And finally, when we're done, when the nodes are detached, we kick them in a fire and forget to be destroyed asynchronously, so not to bug the frame. So now we go to the entity system, which is the next phase, the entity update states. So the first thing we do, we figure out how many spawn requests we have, because we were kind of throttling them a little bit, because if we spawn too much, it can definitely kill the CPUs and the performance. So we're sending quite a few every frame, try to make sure we don't have too much. From there, we do the transaction in single-threaded way, the transaction where I need to attach a weapon to the player, or I need to change an appearance of a character. So any complex operation on the entity, we do it there. And after that, we process all the entity that needs to be detached, followed by all the entity that need attached in parallel. One guarantee we're giving to the user or the person spawning is that when you call attach or you schedule it to be done, attach or detach, it's done the same frame, regardless of how many I have. So if I have 100, they will all be done in one frame. Finally, when the entity is marked to be destroyed, we also create a fire and forget job, so we don't have to block the frame destroying those entities. So in the video I show, there was not a lot of attach and detach entity. Why? Because they're super heavy. And if I'm starting spawning, then the frame rate will drop. So I didn't do it. I kind of acted a little bit so we don't have it. But I scroll a little bit in the past to show you one of the detach process here. And as you can see, it takes 300 plus microseconds. So extremely heavy. So if we have more than the number of core that you have, you can get in problem. You can get in serious trouble. Also, to optimize was very hard because it's kind of death by 1,000 needle. There's so many things happening that every time you optimize, you just save a few nanoseconds or microseconds, and we didn't manage to get this process very, very well. So what about the resource streaming? Well, all the deserialization and decompression were done on job, and they were done at the lowest priority, of course, so not to steal the control from the job worker, from the game or the rendering, because they were less important. We do throttle, because even if we have highest priority, it can steal all the CPUs if there's too much going on at the same time. Important, all the render resource, we did everything async, not during the frame, because they're too expensive. So usually during the frame, when we attach or something like that, we just do a simple registration to the renderer, and we don't create the render resource. And finally, no, and I repeat, no job chain can depend on any resource streaming. So you cannot say, I want this mesh now, I'm going to block the whole frame. Thank you, I'm continue. It cannot work because it can take seconds, right? Or depending on your hardware, mechanical hard drive can be very slow. We cannot do that. And it did happen quite a lot that some people by accident did. And it took a lot of education to fix this mentality in some of the developer. So here in the profiler, we had what we call the resource throttler, which is what managed the number of decompression and deserialization we have. And you can see we only have twice at the same time. So in the left, we have two at the same time. When one finish, one on the bottom kickstart, and then another one on the top, so always two. And in some platform, we only had one at the same time also because it can kill performance. Okay, gameplay. So I will go briefly of two systems. The first one is the vehicle. So the vehicle system, very simply, it manages everything related to vehicle. And I say everything. So it will update all of them. It will handle the suspension of the vehicle. It will figure out if I'm hitting NPC or the player. And it will also manage the weapon aim. It will manage the traffic avoidance. So it was quite centralized into one big system. Second one is the puppet system. This one handles all the complex and simple NPC, including the player. Very important note, we did not allow any communication between vehicle or NPC and vice versa during those updates because, well, most likely at some point one of them will be updated at the same time, and if you do change the state, you're most likely going to crash or create some memory stump. So we introduced a quite complex event system to allow to communicate between entity. So if you want more info, I had quite an example in the last year GTC presentation in 2023, where I present how we are doing shooting a meat bag for all the examples. So if you are interested, you can check it. So how does it look like now in the frame? So for the vehicle, we are in the vehicle bucket, and we start here in the pre-physics sticks. First thing we do, which we call the begin update, here we try to see if we have a vehicle to summon, see if we need to despawn a vehicle from the game. If we have any vehicle that are pending to be registered to the system, we do it there. Sometimes if the camera sees and there's vehicle behind us, maybe we can teleport those vehicles that are too far and put them closer rather than despawning them and doing the whole process. Yeah, so after that, we go to the vehicle pre-update in parallel. This one is that if there's an AI, this is the time to update it. Also, if there's an autopilot. We follow after that when all is finished by the fix update, and finally the suspension. Suspension is basically we just interpolate the vehicle suspension. If the vehicle was too far, we don't even process this, of course. But for the vehicles that are very close, we do. For the fix update, maybe I should mention also that it was simply just pushing the rigid body change to the physics side. So in the profiler, it's actually not half bad. So the gray is the process. As you can see, it cannot use nicely packed CPUs. The pre-update was taking from 10 to 15 microseconds, and the fix update was something like 25 microseconds. So great. Next step for the vehicle, the post updates. So we are still in the vehicle bucket, and this time though in the post-physics sticks update group. So the vehicle post update, this is where we update all the various states of the vehicle. For example, if the vehicle is in the air, if you're aiming in combat, if there's traffic to avoid, anything related to that. When it's done, we do the NPC collision. This one is checking, well, every vehicle. Are you hitting NPC? Are you hitting the player? Did you hit very hard? Do we go to ragdoll or just a slide bump? And we need to apply hit, damage, you name it. So here in the profiler, the post update was taking something like 100 microseconds for a simple one. like the one that are far away. The close one were a bit better. For the collision, something like 18 microseconds. I think we have it here. Yeah, 18 microseconds. But here I'm not super happy actually about how it works, because you see there's a lot of holes that are filled by the rendering. Actually, the rendering is really helping here, thank God, to fill the rest of the CPU. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of holes. So not great. Next, for the character. So in the character bucket, we start in the entity pre-tick. This one is actually very simple. We send all the complex and the simple puppet in parallel at the same time. However, we do send the complex one first because they're longer, and we do want the simple one to fill the gap on the CPU side. When they're all finished, well, now we do the service event, which is what I said earlier, where we process now. It is the time now to do all this communication entity to entity at a specific stage. You might ask, what is a complex versus a simple? Well, the complex is very simple. There's an AI or a state machine. This is a complex. Otherwise, it's a simple. So in the profiler, very good. Again, the strategy we had to put the complex one and the simple one really paid off in general. As you can see, they really finish at the same time. So that's really good. However, here I highlighted the service event. It's terrible. It's at 130 microseconds, and it blocks the frame. So until this is finished and nothing is really running except the rendering, which thank God save us there, I will not be able to continue. So if I want to scale more across more CPU, this will have to be fixed. So who knows? We will have to go there and see what's going on there. Animation. So we only had one system mostly, which is the animation system. Not very original for the name. So what it does, the animation component register themselves there, as simple as that. And then we parallel update per bucket all the animation component. We do manage here also the instancing. So for example, if you play the game, there is, when you get in Phantom Liberty to the market, there is mass crowd. Or in the original game, there is the parade where there's a lot of also crowd. Of course, we don't have unique animation. They are like, you can actually see that some of them play the exact same animation. Well, we needed to save some CPU there. For all the animation that we do not see, we don't actually update them at all, except if they are close, mostly because shadows or other reason. So this we do. And every object that are not being animated, we have what we call a sleep mode, so we don't even tick them until they are some impulse happen to them. For the budget, maybe interesting note because some people ask me about it. It was the same budget for Phantom Liberty than the base game, which is about 40 megabyte, which is about 3,000 to 4,000 animation in the game. So how does it work in the frame? So we start in the pre-bucket, and every bucket has the same sequence. So what you will see is 3 times. At exception, of course, the pre-bucket. So the pre-bucket is very simple. We just attach and detach all the animation and ragdoll. They are made in parallel. And from there, for every bucket, we start in the physics execute async queries. First thing we do, transfer bucket update. What it does, we just need to check if the R key need to be refreshed. And we do it there. At the same time, we start the process of figuring out the distance and the visibility. So we compute at what distance the animation object is, if it's visible or if it's occluded. When we know, we can reserve the memory for those objects. And then when the memory plus the transfer bucket is finished, then we do the last part, which is the update controller. Here we do, like, for example, look at update, or we process the anim set that needs to be added or removed, or push an animation parameter down the attachment and stuff like that. Next, still in the vehicle, character, and object bucket, we do the update. So here, every animation object goes to the update process, but important to see here is that we don't do all the update followed by all the skinning. No, every time we do update animation, when it's finished, we start the skinning update instantly. And then when all the skinning update is finished, we can continue with the update instance animation, so which is, again, processing the instance animation. From there, we go with the ragdoll, same process, all in parallel, no problem, finish, and we cascade the transform change. And we're done. So in the profiler, it's actually amazing for the animation. They did a very good job. They really use the CPU really nicely. They don't block the frame. They really finish mostly in the same time. So for the update anime object, it can take from 40 to 400 microseconds, depending, like, for example, if you have facial animation or LOD0, stuff like that. The skinning was more between 20 and 200, depending on the case, microseconds. For the physics. So we had one physics system, called the physics system, not original too much again. So it was managing all the various physics update, all the collision if we need to stream in and out. That being said, the collision is also another super complex system, so I will not go too much in detail. Yeah, the async queries are also processed that, raycast, overlap, you name it, and also kickstart the simulation and process the result. It was built simply on top of physics. We did not have something custom, or we didn't use Avoc. We used physics since The Witcher 3, so we knew the system pretty well. That being said, we needed to adapt the whole task system they built in to be compatible with our job system. So it was not that simple. So, sorry about that. In the pre-bucket and every single bucket after that, we go to the same process. So in the beginning, the first thing we do is apply the win. We just do it once. So if anything needs the win parameters, we broadcast it there. And from there, we do the same process for every bucket for vehicle, character, and object. So first we do the transaction. From there, the transaction could be, I need to shift the origin. I need to attach or detach any physics object. I need to flush the buffer state. So everything was double buffered. If you're interested about this, again, not to quote this again, but my presentation from 2023, if you download the slide, you can find them online. At the end, I put an annex, and there's how we did it. You can see even the code sample and everything. So if you're curious, it's available for you. So yeah, so when the transaction is finished, we do step proxy, simply call steps on every single physics proxy. When it's finished, we go to the queries. So in parallel, we do the raycast, sweep, overlap. And, which is weird, but in the animation update, we process the collision update, and every single bucket has a different phase of how we manage the collision update. This is why it's quite complex. If you saw some controversy, let's just say, of Cyberpunk, not controversy, we fucked up a little bit, let's just say, on old gen. The reason why it was so complex is because we had so much collision to stream and how to figure out not to fall. So it took us a while to figure out a good system. We managed to make it in the end, but yeah, it's a legacy result of all this work to make it work on old gen. So in the profiler, it's absolutely terrible. So as you can see here, the step character takes 120 microseconds, and it does completely block the frame. But thank God, rendering to the rescue takes all the CPUs, and I'm pretty happy because at least I'm not wasting anything. Then you can see that we follow with the queries, which also are like a bit all over the place, so it's not that bad, but not perfect. So yeah, so the physics is not really good to scale more CPU. So that's part of physics. In the pre-render update at the end of the frame, now we can do the simulation. So we do the same process again, transaction, as I mentioned, origin shift, attach, flush buffer state, those kind of things. And we kickstart the simulation on physics side and the cloth. The cloth we use NV cloth, nothing too special. When it's finished, we do the post-simulate physics, which is just broadcasting the contact for whoever needs it. The post-step proxy was a step that we added because some system needed it, and I think I checked just before this presentation, there's literally just one system left that needs it, which is the particle system, the physical particle system. And they just update position velocity, so if I had to go back and try to scrap maybe a few microseconds, I would probably flush this and try to figure a better way. So yeah, a lot of finding when you try to do those capture deeper. And we end up with the queries again, raycast, overlap, sweep in parallel. And finally, we push the transform data resulting from the simulation and also the cloud data. And we are done. on the profiler, even worse. So this is at the end of the frame, so all the green is physics. This is their own job, this is how they manage it. So, not happy about it. It's at the end of the frame. The rendering has still a little bit of work to do, so that's not too bad, but you can see that already we see a lot of holes. So I guess we can extrapolate that if I want to have more CPU, it will be even more drastic. So if I had to go forward, probably another project or something like that with physics, probably I will embed physics now more in depth in the engine and start to do more refactoring to make it more closer and try to figure out what to do with those jobs. But probably higher R&D and a lot of work for, not sure if we will be able to do something that clever. Audio. So 3 categories in the audio system. First one is the game layer. So this is where we manage the interaction between the game and the audio. And also we handle what we call the hedgehog raycast. What it is? Well, we just cast a lot of raycasts around the characters. The audio does it, and why they do it and why it's important is because we also allow other systems to use it, because we don't want them to also do the exact same process of casting raycasts everywhere. So do it once, share, good. The system layer, this is where we have the process of the audio entity. So we have also double buffered audio entities, so we can do those communication async in parallel without caring about thread safety, and also transform the sound event to actual sound. Finally, we use WIs. Interesting about this is that if you use WIs and you have a not so, maybe a few years version, even 2 or 3 years, you will see that you can now hook your own job system to WIs and process it yourself. You don't have to use their own threading that they provide, which is great. And why? Because we make some pressure and they finally did it. Also, of course, high priority, audio, always high priority. Why? Well, audio. In the frame. So the process is mostly in the pre-bucket and the character bucket. So in the pre-bucket, we do the update audio component. So this is actually an interesting part because this is very legacy for us because we move almost all the audio component out. We didn't actually want this anymore. We use like a simple C-style API that people can use. But we still have some cases we cannot get rid of. Good case would be the player is shooting, but the gun is making the sound. Therefore, I need to ask the audio component to do the sound and positioning and all those kind of things. We could have probably done differently, but it was a legacy remnants of how things works. So yeah, as I said, the logic was moved from those audio components to the system layer during development. In the character bucket, in the pre-physics sticks, we do the hedgehog raycast, as I mentioned, and process the result following up. Simple as that. Next, at the end of the frame, the pre-render update, we process the audio system layer. So here we go to every single audio entity in parallel. As I said, they are double buffered, so even if there's still audio request being made, it's perfectly fine. And yeah, this is responsible for processing the event, input from the game, and transforming to play sound requests or any other audio action. From there, we go to the update subsystem. So we had a lot of kind of specific sound system like the radio system or you name it. But those were done in a single threaded manner, but they were quite fast, so it was not too much of a big deal. And also, all of them kind of had some dependencies, so it was very hard to start to unhook them. And again, the effort for the gain was not worth it, so we just kept everything in a single threaded manner. The acoustic, yeah, the acoustic was an interesting process. It was done completely fire and forget way, because it can take as long as it wants, I guess until the beginning of the frame. So we kickstarted there and loop around, and then I think when we start the character bucket again, then we just make sure it's finished, and usually it's finished. Yeah, so it goes to the all acoustic graph, and it can run async and wrap around the frame, so that was good. Graphic. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the goals we had was to break the good old monolithic render thread that you had seen, you know, good old, I guess, Unreal Way, or I'm not sure. I think pretty much all engine almost have this still. It's very rare to see engine that doesn't have it. I think there's Tech also is the same than us now. They managed to split it into render graph. So yeah, render graph was our solution. It was fully parallelized using job system. We had a bunch of those graphs that we can combine together. For example, if you are ray tracing, no ray tracing, or you have HUD menu, you can even reuse some of the nodes of those graphs so you don't have to redo the job multiple times. And it was super easy to set up and use. And as you saw previously, it magically takes all the CPU that I have left for it. So very nice. So the graph of the main graph looks a bit like this. So it's very simplified, but still looks very complex, as you can see. If you want to go deeper, there is again, on the web, if you search for 2023, my name, you will find the slides, they're already public. At the end, there's an annex again, and I go, I think this 10 slide at which I go describe every process how to build this graph. There's code snippet, everything, you can inspire yourself. Actually, I'll be happy if you inspire yourself and you just tell me that it was helpful. Let me know. It's all there, public for you. So I won't go too much into detail here. But how does it look like on the profiler? Well, it is very good. So here I made like the same first capture I did. I make a contrast, for the rendering to show more. It's not super good on this projector, but you can see that it really fills the CPU really nicely everywhere when there is some gap to be taken. And the reason why also is because everything is higher priority than the rendering, which is counterproductive when you think about it. But the idea is that I want the rendering to just keep when there is a space and not steal the glory of the other system that actually will block the frame. And it works very good. If I put the rendering higher priority, the whole rendering will squash to the left, and then we'll have all those holes not being used, which is not good. Performance and scalability. So if now we try to go with more CPUs, with the whole engine, how does it look like? So the original one that I did, which is 5 job worker and 1 main thread, as you can see, it is very good. Not too much hole to be available. We run right now at 16 milliseconds, so perfect 60 hertz. There's not too much space though. If I was streaming and doing some other work, okay, we'll have some itches, but for the sake of being able to showcase this on a laptop, well, I removed those systems to run. So it looks very nice. So now I rerun the whole video. It was on rail, and then try to figure out what does it do if I go with 9 job workers plus the main thread. So now it's getting a little bit interesting because you can see that the rendering now start to get squashed on the left a little bit. And now the physics show all his weakness in all his glory. So you see a lot of holes. And now we get to a point that okay, there is a lot of CPU not being used. But that being said, right now we are at 12 milliseconds, so it's still a very good gain. Acceptable. So let's push forward now at 12. Now at 12, this is pretty much the limit that we have, where after that the gain gets reduced. Now we see the rendering is completely in the left. It finished very early. The physics is completely, left alone. Everything is finished. We are waiting for it. We have a lot of holes just after the animation, also filled with a lot of gameplay system there, actually. So at the glance, it looks not great, but we are now at 100 FPS on this laptop, or the other laptop. So still very, very good for CPU performance. But we can see that now we are reaching the limit. So I didn't go forward with more visualization because it was not possible to see in the same screen. So here, I show you a little bit. If I start adding more workers, we can see that actually I'm reducing performance. There's a few reasons why. First, well, the laptop that I run it has efficiency core and performance core. There's 8 performance, and after that, when you start using more core, then if you depend on those core, well, if you have something very critical around on that core and you depend it to finish your frame, then you have a problem. And the more you have to rely on it, and it starts to cost. Second, I have very high instrumentation, so I'm spamming atomic operation. So the more, at one point, it also costs a lot. And you can see in the profiling when I got like a classic profiler to see it, yep, there's too much atomic operation being spammed. And finally, I have 0 LTO, 0 profile get optimization that we had in the final. So if I get all of this, remove all the instrumentation, put the LTO, PGO, plus a better management, because we have a way to better manage the performance core. The curve will be less drastic, but I didn't have the time to go too deep. But after 18, it's over. You will not get any more performance. If you want more, I think Digital Foundry did a few videos actually to compare the CPU performance in the history of the whole life cycle of the product. And they have very good result, and I'm actually pretty happy about it. So, thank you for staying so far. Conclusion. So, it looks very nice when I showcase, like, you know, a lot of things is great. A few times I will say that something is bad, but in the end, it's not that bad, right? Because we had very good performance in PC at least, even on PS5 and other console. But definitely some problem happen. And what kind of problem we encounter? Well, it's very simple. If I go back to the first slide almost, if you ever encounter this case where basically you have a very ambitious project and there's no structure of the frame, you are, at this case, like 2 years before shipping, you're in trouble. So don't be us, because this follow us all the way to the old gen release. And even though we had very good vision after that, how to do it, refactoring system is very hard, right? So please have a nice frame structure. Don't overthink it. Don't over-engineer it. It works. If you have a great idea, actually, I will be glad to see it, don't get me wrong. But for us, we try to go to something that really we know is going to work, because we were trying to be pragmatic, and it works. Define the budget with the team. Be sure that they are aware of what's going on, where they fit in the frame, that you can discuss it. We used the post-it. We didn't stay with the post-it forever. We had, after that, a more like almost like spreadsheety way we can work easier. And after that, we had visualization in the game profiler. So we evolved from a more digital form. But still, anything to talk with the team will help. Designing system to be scalable is bloody hard. So let's not think about the fact that it's easy. Even though I might have seen easy, it was not. It's a pain. Usually the gameplay and the AI, it's not their fault actually. The same with me. You design a system, it's easy to think in a single-threaded way. It's super easy. You can design it, test it, it works, but then, okay, now if I run 1,000, okay, it doesn't work. Okay, now how do I make it faster? The only way I can make it faster is either the code has to be faster, which is not that easy, because of course I make awesome work, and then I have to parallelize. Oh God, how do I make it? Now you need to think about thread safety issues, dependency, It's super hard. So you need to not over-engineer, but also think about it a little bit. Because if you want to refactor during production your code, it is bloody painful. Because you have a great idea, now you make it parallel, and suddenly, boom, you have memory stump, thread safety issues, and then you have a massive game running, right? And now it's very, very difficult. You need a lot of QA, a lot of tools. It's very difficult, so the earlier, the better. But again, not everything is doom and gloom. A few things went well, and again, maybe I already spoiled it. If you have a good structure, it will go well. And here, the very interesting thing is, I think Carolina, my colleague, if you were in the presentation, she said about the fact that CDPR is a very, used to be, and we're struggling to get back to this, to be very working together, but this is a very good occasion where when all the engineers got in the room, and it was not about like, okay, now fuck you, I need, oh, sorry, I hope it's not PG-13, but it's not about, I need this budget and you don't. No, it was about, okay, look, I'm very confident I can make this run in parallel in that budget, you can take this budget. And it was very collaborative, and we ended up, this thing didn't take weeks, it took days, like I think 2 or 3 days, and we're done, we're like signed with our blood, everybody was happy. So just engage the people together, talk, communicate, and negotiate. Now we all have the same goal anyway, right? So it works really well, and I was glad to see this collaboration. So we ended up with a simple frame that was pretty easy to understand and was great. Everything was multi-threaded in the end, like everything. Of course, there was a few things running in a single threader, but the job chain, they were all made in parallel. If a lot of times we were trying to discuss with the engineer, like, okay, I'm getting the frame, I see that the frame is blocking, I have a beautiful jobs, no CPU being used, talk with the person, we need to do something. How can I help you? How can all the engineers help you? And we were trying to brainstorm, and we did, in the end, having all multi-threaded. And I don't think I ever seen a game with that ambition, with the gameplay all multi-threaded. It was very challenging for the gameplay people, but they did it, and I'm sure they are today very proud of what they achieved. And the rendering was the same. We made it actually very early, and that's also saved our ass a lot. And yeah, as I mentioned, I think we scale very well across all CPUs. I think that even today, I will even say that we are used, and I'm really, really happy to be used as the poster child of how to scale well in CPUs. I know we could have done better, and I know we could, but I'm always very, very proud of Cyberpunk when I see like other Digital Foundry, other people look at it and say, wow, this is great. And I hope that it can also inspire other people to say, it is possible. It is not something that it's too difficult. It is possible with some hard work. And I hope that I will see some of you guys also use CPU. It's like almost my crusade now. And that's it. Thank you so much. So that was exactly 50 minutes. So if you have any question, again, I will repeat again if you want to do it in French, if you feel more comfortable, it's perfectly fine. I speak French. I'm just...
Un, deux, oui. Je vais la faire en français parce que sinon je vais bafouiller. Vous aviez dit que vous n'attendiez pas, enfin le streaming de ressources, il n'y avait pas de wait dessus. Si une ressource n'attend pas, si elle n'est pas prête, bah, tant pis, on la rend pas. Qu'est-ce qui se passe du coup quand on arrive à un moment où on va trop vite, par exemple avec la voiture à fond et puis.
Ouais. Je vais essayer de répondre en français. Okay.
Vous pouvez répondre en anglais pour moi.
Yeah, if you allow me, I will answer in English. So there's a few things. As I mentioned, we had a lot of throttling in a few places because sometimes it was going so fast that it will steal all the CPUs. So this is, especially like on PS5 when we managed to get like more than 1 gig a second in some good space. So it was too fast, literally too fast. So the decompression was the problem. So we throttled it. So as I mentioned, we had only 2 at the same time that can run. More than that, we wait in a queue. And then we just process as we go. Also very important is that the job system was made in a way that you can actually say, when this resource is finished, do this work. So I can literally say, I need this entity to be spawned, I need this entity to be in the game, and then when it's finished, I want to process this code. And this is how we did all of this, because it took a while for people to figure out, oh, I don't have to wait for this to be ready to do my code right now. No, you can actually just schedule it when it's ready. And I think it's the most difficult part for the gameplay was to figure out how to think that, yes, it will be ready someday. Because again, we throttle a lot. So yeah, I hope that it answers.
Tu as mentionné Jason Gregory au début. Ils utilisent des fibers, je crois, Naughty Dog. Vous avez fait pareil ou le render thread, c'est sur des threads séparés?
Très bonne question. So the job system went to 3 iterations. The first one was terrible. Second one, we decided we'd try fibers. And me, as an engine programmer, I don't want fiber. But I was like, okay, the gameplay people will want fiber. For sure. Like if I was a gameplay programmer, I want fiber. And the whole job system, if you look, again, if you go back to David's blog this year, you do a presentation and you will see it's almost fiber-like style, but it's with using jobs. And then when we went to the gameplay, they were like, no, we don't want fiber. It's fine, it's perfectly fine. We can use what you have. I was like, okay, no, I say, no, you do want fiber, right? You do. It's like, no, I'm good. All right. So I guess it was easy. So yeah, so the whole we did the whole system in a way that if they want fiber, we can switch to fiber, which is weird. But in the end, we stay with the traditional job workers. But actually, to be fair, like if we do another game ever with this tech, yeah, fiber will definitely be back on the table. And I'm confident it will be, of course, not easy, but not difficult to adapt.
Merci pour la présentation. Vous disiez au début, vous disiez en conclusion que c'est important de prévoir une structure pour la frame. j'ai du mal à comprendre comment on fait ça sans avoir observé une première fois que ça ne va pas. et du coup, où sont les trous et où est-ce qu'on peut améliorer?
So, okay, so it's a very good question, actually. I would say that what we ended up is way too complex, first of all, because it was a result of, as you said, what we saw. And we didn't manage to... At first, we have so many dependencies that we ended up with this. That being said, I highly, highly recommend to go much simpler, much simpler. Start with something very classical. You do need some probably dependency between vehicle, character, and items. This can be defined, and you can even squash the number of update group you have. You start the frame, and you end the frame, and probably the camera, done. That's it. Start with that, and then as you go, if you see that there is literally like the complexity of making those systems communicate to each other in a multi-threaded way is too much, then you can maybe add one. But I highly, highly say challenge it, because one of the reasons we cannot scale too much is because we have too much of those update group. And if I want to get the scalability faster, I will probably try to figure out which one I can remove as fast as possible, because again, every single one blocks the frame if you want to go forward, right? So yeah, start simpler and then scale if needed, but at least start with something that makes sense. That will be my recommendation.
Bonjour. Pour tout ce qui est animation, vous avez dit que vous ne faisiez pas d'update au-delà de 5 mètres des persos.
Yeah, ouais. Non, oui, si on les voit.
Si on les voit pas.
Ouais.
Oui, bien sûr. Et du coup, si le perso arrive dans le champ de vision, je suppose que ça utilise le root motion, est-ce que du coup le root motion est quand même update?
Oui.
Ah oui, d'accord.
Ouais.
Pour tous les persos.
Oui.
Okay.
Il n'y a plus de questions. Si.
C'est plutôt une question sur le futur. Alors, j'espère que vous pourrez répondre. Mais toutes les optimisations que vous avez présentées, c'est pour le Red Engine. Mm-hmm. Alors, les rumeurs disent que pour The Witcher 4, vous utilisez plus de Red Engine, mais peut-être un autre moteur. Comment est-ce que vous... Et un moteur, si j'ai cru comprendre, qui est sur étagère. Comment est-ce que vous prenez cette expertise de pouvoir descendre très bas dans l'optimisation de votre solution, de votre moteur? Comment est-ce que vous l'apportez sur un moteur off-the-shelf?
C'est une excellente question. Prochaine question? Non, je vais... en gros, j'essaie de penser qu'est-ce que je peux dire. OK. Pour nous, c'est inacceptable de faire un pas en arrière, de toute façon. Donc, nos prochains jeux, c'est sûr certain que nous, on veut être meilleurs, sinon plus que Cyberpunk ou The Witcher. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire maintenant avec Unreal? Stay tuned, I'll say. On a quelques trucs à présenter. Trop tôt pour en parler, mais ouais, on travaille avec Epic très, très, très proche. Je pense que l'annoncement avait été fait un peu en partenariat. On essaie d'échanger, en fait, avec aussi toutes les autres compagnies qui travaillent avec Unreal, notre expertise. Et on essaie de voir comment on peut aider, en fait, la technologie pour venir plus proche de ça. En fait, juste un spoiler alert, il y a eu un update dernièrement sur Unreal, ça je peux le dire en fait. Puis je pense au Digital Foundry, on dit que wow, il y avait une bonne optimisation. Not me, but my team. C'est nous qui avons travaillé avec Epic pour faire ces changements en partenariat, avec un de nos programmeurs avec eux, puis on a réussi à mettre ça dans la mainline. On essaye vraiment de pousser la limite avec eux. Avec un peu de chance, vous allez profiter aussi dans le futur. Wow, j'ai fait ça en français. Parfait. Merci.